This video was brought to you by our show, The Daily Briefing. After weeks of quiet, the last couple of weeks or so have been remarkably busy in Ukraine. We had the much anticipated Kherson counteroffensive last week, and now yet another Ukrainian counteroffensive in Kharkiv this week. While it's hard to know precisely what happened, because both Ukrainian and Russian authorities have tried to suppress information for intelligence reasons, it doesn't look like things have gone too well for the Russians in Kharkiv, with Ukrainian forces making speedy advancements towards Russian supply routes from Belgorod. So in this video, we're going to be looking back over recent developments, what might happen next, and what all of this means for the long-term trajectory of this war. So let's start with Kherson. As we detailed in a previous video, on Monday last week, Ukrainian forces in the south staged an offensive against Russian troops in the Kherson Oblast, presumably with the intention of eventually liberating Kherson City, a regional capital that was originally captured by the Russians in early March. Using Western-supplied HIMARS systems, Ukrainian forces have been able to damage the two main supply routes for Russian troops in Kherson City across the Dnipro River. The Novokakova Dam, which acts as a bridge for Russian military hardware, and the Antonovsky Bridge in the center of Kherson. At the time, it looked like Ukrainian forces were essentially planning to besiege the Russians in the city by staging an attritional campaign from the west while preventing arms and supplies from reaching the Russian troops from the east. Now, while it's hard to say exactly, initially it didn't look like the counteroffensive was going particularly well. While Ukrainian forces did recapture some towns, the line of control didn't move all that much, and there were reports of significant Ukrainian casualties. Furthermore, there were reports that Ukrainian forces who had crossed the river near the towns of Andrivka and Lazov had been trapped after Russian forces destroyed the bridgeheads over the river. However, over the last few days, things seem to have improved slightly. Ukrainian forces have captured a few more towns, including a couple near the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, and have established a permanent presence surrounding the inlet's river, around Andrivka and Lazov, which is where they've previously been most vulnerable. Now, there's still some disagreement on this point, because Russian forces claim that Ukrainian forces are still trapped, whereas Ukrainian sources claim that they're well supported and making progress. But the fact that they're still there after a week does suggest that the Ukrainians have successfully established a position in the area. Nonetheless, while the Ukrainians have made advances, it's important to keep this in perspective. With the exception of the advance over the Inelets River, which according to some sources has now advanced more than 12 kilometers, other advances have been significantly more limited, to a few kilometers here or there. Obviously, this is still remarkable. The fact that Ukrainians are on the offensive more than the Russians marks a significant turning point in the war, but don't expect Kherson City to fall in the next 24 hours or something. However, while things haven't gone perfectly in the south, the Ukrainians have had more dramatic successes in the north. With Russian forces now concentrated in the south, dealing with the Kherson counteroffensive, Ukrainian forces have staged a rapid counteroffensive in the Kharkiv Oblast, taking the town of Balaklia and moving northeast towards the town of Shevenkov, presumably with the intention of eventually capturing Kupiansk. In fact, Ukrainian Telegram channels have been flooded with videos of residents greeting Ukrainian forces and waving Ukrainian flags. In fact, as of Thursday, even Russian sources are reporting that Ukrainians have progressed 30 kilometers into previously Russian-held territory, which is a pretty crazy rate of advance. Ukrainian forces were helped here by the fact that they're able to move from the southeastern to the northern front far quicker than their Russian counterparts have been able to. Which means that if Ukrainian forces do reach Kupiansk, this could be pretty terrible news for the Russians, because it's their main supply route to Izium. And Russia has a significant number of troops deployed in Izium, because they can move south there towards Sloviansk and Kramatorsk, the two remaining Ukrainian holdouts in Donbass. And as such, the town has essentially become a logistical base for Russia's eastern effort. However, most of the troops in Izium are supplied by Russian bases in Belgorod, which suffered power cuts on Tuesday after a Ukrainian strike hit a nearby power station. And as you can see from this map, major rail lines from Belgorod and Izium run through Kupiansk, as do major roads, including the P79 and the T2114, the two largest roads from Belgorod to Izium. You get the point then. If Ukrainians can reach Kupiansk, then the Russians will struggle to continue supplying forces in Donbass. All in all, while it's too early to say for certain, this looks like pretty bad news for Putin. While Russian forces managed to mostly contain the Kherson offensive, at least for the moment, Ukraine's Kharkiv counteroffensive is progressing rapidly and threatens to undermine Russia's main front in Donbass, which has already stalled. The fact that Ukraine is attacking on two fronts also means that Russia will have little to no capacity to stage their own offensives, and as such, they've quickly reverted to just defending earlier gains. Furthermore, the prospect of liberation for Ukrainian forces will only excite anti-Russian sentiment in these occupied areas. We've already seen reports of increased partisan activity in Kherson and Zaporizhia in late August, where Ukrainian partisans bombed the Russian headquarters who were making referendum preparations in Zaporizhia. And yesterday there were similar attacks against the homes of two different Russian collaborators assisting with the annexation referendum in Melitopol. This prospect of anti-annexation violence has apparently spooked Russian authorities in Kherson, who recently cancelled plans for a referendum on Kherson's accession into the Russian Federation, which had previously been set for mid-September. All in all, this is pretty bad news for Russians. They're now defending territory which is populated by angry partisans, with no real relief in sight. By the way, we first reported on this earlier in the week in our show, The Daily Briefing. So if you want to be updated on this story going forward, then be sure to subscribe to TLDR Daily. That's our show where we break down the biggest news stories each day and make sure that you never miss a thing, giving you insights from around the world and helping you understand more than just the headlines. You can watch the show every weekday on the TLDR Daily YouTube channel, or you can listen through your favorite podcast app. Subscribe right now by clicking the link in the description, and never feel left behind by the news cycle again.